Good morning, students. Today is our next lecture, and that is about the transverse section of small intestine. We have learned until now about the transverse section of stomach, and we have seen that stomach has very important role in the digestion. But small intestine is has very important role in absorption. Okay, so we are going to see the transverse section of small intestine. Before that, I will give some important information about small intestine. The chyme released from the stomach enters the small intestine. Chyme means जे आपण खाल्लेलं चर्न केलेलं बारीक झालेलं सेमी डायजेस्टेड फूड स्टमकमध्ये असतं ते पुढं कशामध्ये येतं स्मॉल इंटेस्टाईनमध्ये येतं विच इज द प्रायमरी डायजेस्टिव्ह ऑर्गन इन द बॉडी. Stomach doesn't absorb anything. It just play a role in the digestion by secreting enzymes and different hormones. But small intestine has a very important role in the absorption. Not only is this where most digestion occurs, it is also where practically all the absorption occurs. The longest part of the alimentary canal, the small intestine, is about 3.05 meters, that means almost 10 feet long in a living person. Okay, so it is almost 10 feet long, but still it is called as small intestine. Since this makes it about 5 times longer than the large intestine, you might wonder why it is called small. In fact, its name derives from its relatively smaller diameter of only about 2.54 centimeters. The diameter of small intestine is just 2.54 centimeters, that means just 1 inch, compared with 7.62 centimeters, that is 3 inch for the large intestine. As we all see shortly, in addition to its length, the folds and projections of the lining of the small intestines work to give it an enormous surface area. So the surface area of the small intestine is increased by different kinds of folds, and which is approximately 200 meters square. Surface area of small intestine is 200 meters square, more than 100 times the surface area of your skin. This large surface area is necessary for complex process of digestion and absorption that occurs within it. Now the coiled tube of the small intestine is again subdivided into three regions, from proximal at the stomach to distal at the large intestine. Okay, these are called as duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Which are these? Duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. The shortest region is the 25.4 centimeter, that is 10 inch, that is the duodenum, which begins at the pyloric sphincter. Just past the pyloric sphincter, it bends posteriorly behind the peritoneum, becoming retroperitoneal, and then makes a C-shaped curve around the head of the pancreas before ascending anteriorly again to return to the peritoneal cavity and join the jejunum. The duodenum can therefore be subdivided into four segments: the superior, descending, horizontal, and ascending duodenum. Okay. Then next, you can what you can do in this case. I have not put it in the presentation because it becomes very heavy. You can search on Google and see the diagram of small intestine. Okay. The jejunum is about 0.9 meters and runs from the duodenum to the ileum. Jejunum means empty in the Latin, and suppose supposedly was so named by the ancient Greeks, who noticed it was always empty at death. No clear demarcation exists between the jejunum and the final segment of the small intestine, that is the ileum. The ileum is the longest part of the small intestine, meaning about 1.8 meters, that means 6 feet in length. It is thicker, more vascular, and has more developed mucosal folds than jejunum. The ileum joins the cecum, the first portion of the large intestine. At the ileocecal sphincter, the joining is called as ileocecal sphincter. The jejunum and the ileum are tethered to the posterior abdominal wall by mesentery. The large intestine frames these three parts of the small intestine. Now we are going to see the histology of the small intestine. Which three parts we have seen? First is the duodenum, jejunum, and the ileum. Okay, so in the histology or the transverse sections of the uh, small intestine, you can see the following parts. The wall of the small intestine is composed of the same four layers typically present in the alimentary canal or alimentary system. However, three features of the mucosa and submucosa are unique. These features, which increase the absorptive surface area of the small intestine more than 600 folds, includes circular folds, villi, and microvilli. त्याची जी सरफेस एरिया स्मॉल इंटेस्टाईनची वाढते त्याचं मुख्य तीन कारण आहेत. ती म्हणजे सर्क्युलर फोल्ड्स, विलाय अँड मायक्रोविलाय. विलाय म्हणजे हेरी लाईक स्ट्रक्चर which absorbs the micronutrients or nutrients from the food. Okay, these adaptations are most abundant in the proximal two-thirds of the small intestine where the majority of absorption takes place. Now, what are these circular folds? These circular folds, also called a plica circuli. Circular folds are also called as plica circulari. A circular fold is a deep ridge in the mucosa and submucosa. Beginning near the proximal part of the duodenum and ending near the middle of the ileum, these folds facilitate absorption. Their shape causes the chime to spiral rather than move in a straight line. त्याचा जो स्ट्रक्चर जर तुम्ही बघितला असेल तर तो कसा आहे, स्पायरल आहे, फोल्डेड आहे. ओके, थ्रू द स्मॉल इंटेस्ट मूव इन अ स्ट्रेट लाईन थ्रू द स्मॉल इंटेस्टाइन. So spiraling slows the movement of the chime and provides the time needed for nutrients to be fully absorbed. मेन पार्ट काय आहे, फंक्शन काय आहे स्मॉल इंटेस्टाईनचं, तर ॲब्सॉर्प्शन आहे. डायजेशन बऱ्याचसा हे कशामध्ये झालं असतं, स्टमकमध्ये झालं असतं. वेन इट रिचेस टू द स्मॉल इंटेस्टाईन, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल द surface area is increased due to these villi and the circular folds, and due to that it takes more time in the small intestine for the absorption. Now about the, you can see it in this picture how the structure of internal structure or transverse section of the small intestine looks like. You can see the structure of villi, then what are the, how the capillaries are there. Through these capillaries the blood absorbs nutrients and then it will get supplied to the other parts of the body. Okay, you can see it here, the structure of microvilli. They are having brush like border, okay, which increases the surface area. So due to this it get absorbs. This is the inner, whatever these absorptive cells are there, these goblet cells are there, artery cells are there, or others, these cells, whatever you see, this part is the innermost part of the small intestine. Well, you can see in the serosa part, there are again some blood vessels or lymphatic vessels are observed. This is the diagram which is shown. You can see in a transverse section of intestine. Here also you can see the folds. It is very difficult to take the internal structure, study the internal structure of microvilli and all, because it needs a electron microscope. Okay, so this diagram you have to go through. Next also we are going to see some diagrams. Okay, then villi. What kind of villi are there? Within the circular folds are small 0.5 to 1 mm long hair-like vascularized projections called the villi that give the mucosa a furry texture. There are about 20 to 40 villi per square millimeter, increasing the surface area of the epithelium tremendously. The mucosal epithelium, primarily composed of absorptive cells, covers the villi. In addition to muscle and connective tissues to support its structure, each villus, single is called as villus, contains a capillary bed composed of one arteriole and one venule, as well as lymphatic capillaries called the lactal. The breakdown products of carbohydrates and proteins can enter the bloodstream directly, but lipid breakdown products are absorbed by lactals and transported to the bloodstream via lymphatic system. बघा काय महत्त्वाचं, की प्रोटीन्स आणि कार्बोहायड्रेट्स आहेत ते डायरेक्ट ब्लडस्ट्रीममध्ये एंटर करतात, बट दॅट लिपिड ॲब्सॉर्प्शन टेक्स प्लेस थ्रू lactals, and then from lactals it reach to the lymphatic system and then get added to the main bloodstream. Okay, so the important part which is very important in the small intestine is the microvilli. Now this microvilli, villi which are even smaller than the these normal villi, they are called as microvilli. As their name suggests, microvilli, that is singular microvillus, are much smaller, almost 1 μm than villi. त्यांची साईज काय असते 1 μm और मायक्रोमीटर, म्हणजे एका मिलीमीटरचा हजारावा जो भाग असतो त्याला आपण काय म्हणतो 1 μm. सो इतक्या लहान अशा मायक्रोविलाय तिथं प्रेझेंट असतात. दे आर सिलेंड्रिकल अपायकल सरफेस extension of the plasma membrane of the mucosa's epithelial cells and are supported by microfilaments within those cells. Although their small size makes it difficult to see each microvillus, their combined microscopic appearance suggests a mass of bristles, which is termed the brush border. Fixed to the surface of the microvilli membrane are enzymes that finish digesting carbohydrates and proteins. There are an estimated 200 million microvilli per square millimeter of small intestine. Just imagine 200 million microvilli of per square millimeter of small intestine, greatly expanding the surface area of the plasma membrane and thus greatly enhancing absorption. Okay. Now the last part, you can see the diagram here of microvilli. There are the villi which are present on the intestinal borders, and these are the microvilli. Okay. Can you see the structure of microvilli? This is microvilli. On the villi, there are again a small structure which is called as microvilli. Okay. Now the last part of the this small intestine is the intestinal glands. So these intestinal glands, basically the mucosa between the villi is dotted with deep crevices, each leading into tubular intestinal glands, crypts of Libercun, which is formed by cells that line the crevices. This produce a slightly alkaline intestinal juice, pH 7.4 to 7.8, mixture of water and mucus. Each day, about 0.95 to 1.9 liters are secreted in response to the distension of the smallest intestine or the irritating effects of chyme on the intestinal mucosa. The submucosa of the duodenum is the only site of the complex mucus secreting duodenal glands which produce bicarbonate rich alkaline mucus that buffers the acidic chyme as it enters from the stomach. Stomach मध्ये काय आपण बघितलेलं होतं हायड्रोक्लोरिक ऍसिड आहे. So it makes it acidic. Due to that, many bacteria get killed, and due to this acidic medium, there are digestion of different kind of nutrients. Okay, but this is that food is very rich in acids. So to neutralize it, the intestine, small intestine, has to secrete different kinds of alkalis. Okay, and that is secreted by these intestinal glands. Okay, so we will stop it here today. And the important part, as we have learned today, is about the properties of small intestine or functions of small intestine, that it has both the functions of digestion as well as absorption. So most of the part of the proteins, carbohydrates and lipids are get absorbed during this particular uh, in this particular part of the alimentary canal, that is the small intestine. As we have seen, different from that of stomach, it has the intestinal, or what you can circular folds. It has villi, it has microvilli, which increases the surface area. It has three parts: duodenum, second is ileum, okay, and third, that you have to answer. Which part? Jejunum. Jejunum, ileum, and duodenum. Okay, and as I told you, the assignment that you have to go on the Google, search about the structure of small intestine, where exactly how it looks, what is the you can download a diagram and you can store it for your reference. Okay, you can even read more about the digestion process in small intestine, though it is not part of our syllabus, digestion and digestive system physiology. Our part is histology, but still you can study about how the digestion takes place in the small intestine and large intestine. Okay, so tomorrow we are going to learn more about the large intestine. Okay, then after that we are going to learn about the different glands associated with it, like salivary glands in the liver. Okay, so with this we'll stop our lecture, and tomorrow we'll meet, not tomorrow, on Monday we'll meet again and we'll discuss about the transverse section of large intestine. Thank you. If you have any queries or any questions related with any of this topic, I know histology is a very, though it looks very simple with the diagrams and all, but there are so many different words you have to remember, and you have to remember the layers, the functions, the cells, name of the cells, and they are very tongue twisting names. Okay, so just try to imagine when you are looking at the diagram and listening what I'm telling you during the presentation, and try to imagine it, how exactly it may be inside our body. Okay, so with that only you can get a clear cut idea about how the transverse section of stomach look like, how the transverse section of intestine look like, small intestine look like, how absorption of food material takes place in this all these parts of the body. So realization or imagination of all these things in your mind will only clear your basic ideas about these structures. Thank you.